the UN Development Goal number 17, which speaks about partnership. We are going to create partnerships today that we will collaborate more and make the innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystem work better. We believe that as Africa positions itself as a global innovation partner, it is imperative to build a responsive ecosystem that support inclusive and sustainable growth. So usually when I introduce myself, I say I'm Rufunoti Chikarange from the village. So I am the villager from Limpopo in Venda. And I want to be able to do this when I'm at home. So currently I'm stuck in Gauteng, because if I go home, there's no connectivity, there's no infrastructure. So we are hoping that this discussion will start something that will help us for everyone to be able to have access from wherever they are. And as the G20 theme spoke of solidarity, equality, and sustainability, our theme for this event is aligning innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystem, public-private sector partnership for sustainable growth in Africa. So we picked the equality and sustainability to form our theme and topic for today. So we are hoping that through this dialogue, more collaborations and partnership will be established, and then we will not be working in silos. I would then like to introduce our esteemed moderator. I would like you to help me welcome him. It is our pleasure to welcome the founder of the Leadership with a Soul Institute, who proudly carries the title of Change Agent in Chief. This title embodies his vision of transformation and connection, and for those who know him will understand why the title Change Agent in Chief suits him very well. Mr. Andile Lunga Stofile has inspired change across industries, communities, and boardrooms, and has inspired me personally. He believes that storytelling is at the heart of human connection and problem solving, and his vision of leadership with a soul has touched lives through corporate transformation, youth reskilling initiatives, and he works with community for development and growth that is inclusive and transformational. He is an award-winning strategist and accomplished keynote speaker, so you will see indeed we chose well. He continues to champion innovation, connection, and positive change. So please, ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming our moderator, Mr. Andile Lunga Stofile. Our event is live streamed, so we have more connected online. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Advocate, for that obituary. It's really appreciated when your obituary is read while you're still alive. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. You know, the beauty about being on stage and being the moderator is that you are at my mercy. So we can sing the song of good morning up until I'm satisfied and my demands are met. So when I say good morning, I do hope that you guys are going to respond accordingly. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. Molweni, Sanbonan, Dumelang, Dimasheron, Nda, Tobel. Are we there? Ladies and gentlemen, it's my distinct honor and pleasure to be your moderator today and to welcome everyone to this high panel dialogue discussion for today, which is really titled Aligning Innovation and Entrepreneurship Ecosystems, Public-Private Partnerships for Sustainable Growth in Africa. Before I formally start, let me acknowledge, the people that have made sure that we are here. So the session is hosted by Orizu Consulting Enterprises in partnership with Paikta. and supported by Google South Africa as the official side event sponsor, with partners, the Innopass, who's the technical support and marketing partner in the organization which has deployed me here, which is the Leadership with the Soul Institute. So maybe let me just take a bit of time so that we are able to level set in terms of just the background of today, so that we are also able to springboard off the same foundation. So just from a bit of background, so Africa's innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystem remains fragmented across policy, finance, infrastructure, and regulation. Despite the proliferation of hubs, incubators, and initiatives, I think we'll all agree that we do see that there's a lot of siloed approaches, and these continue to hinder the translation of science-based research into scalable innovation. So today's session really is geared towards exploring how Triple P's public-private partnerships can act as an integrative mechanism to build enabling environments that foster entrepreneurship, innovation, and regional integration. So, this discussion further considers Africa's strategic participation in platforms such as the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, BRICS, G20, by asking the question of how can Africa strengthen collaboration across sectors to build responsible ecosystems that support innovators and entrepreneurs to thrive in competitive global markets. And also you'll see further on, because what we don't want is for this to be another talk shop. We want for you guys to come out with tangible outputs for today. So you'll see that throughout this high-level dialogue and also curated case studies, the session will start from just diagnosing the problem. So let's diagnose the fragmentation and also then move towards the solution area, which is then showcasing stuff that has been done. So it's showcasing Triple P models that align stakeholders across different domains, including regulation, finance, and infrastructure. And so the aim is to seed actionable insights and strategic partnerships that advance ecosystem coherence and inclusive growth. So, as the audience, what are the kind of things that you should expect? And these are the expected outcomes that you should judge the success of today. So it's strategic. The first one is strategic insights on ecosystem gaps and alignment mechanisms. Number two is case-based examples of Triple Ps driving inclusive innovation, seeded partnerships, and interest in post-event collaboration, and last but certainly not least, a proposed roadmap to scale best practice Triple P models for ecosystem development. So we are now going to transition into into our panel discussion. And so just to make sure that we've got some oil in the machine. So, we've got you'll see a very, very high level and very powerful delegation, which, has got leading voices from government, from regional bodies, and also the private sector to explore how Triple Ps can unlock sustainable innovation and entrepreneurship across Africa. We really have brought the best of the best, because we want to make sure that the promise of innovation is not just a promise. The promise of the ecosystem is not just a promise, but is actually realized towards inclusive growth. And to make sure that the current reality as we see it now does not exist going forward. So the strategic dialogue will, as I've mentioned, will diagnose fragmentation within Africa's innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystems, and really focused around 5 key domains. So the first one is policy and regulation. The second one is finance and market access. The third domain is human capital. Fourth domain, shared infrastructure and technology access. And last, number 5, the fifth domain is commercialization and support services. So what we're seeking to do is to show that the disconnect between entrepreneurship and innovation ecosystems really leads to the siloed effects. And I call it the spinning of wheels. When you're spinning wheels and you don't actually put the handbrake down, what happens is that you're just going to burn rubber, but there's no impact. So you're going to measure activity and have lots of activity, but not impact. And this is just one of the results of having a siloed approach. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm really going to ask you to help me to welcome our guests, but in welcoming them, Please, can we give them an extremely, I mean, it must feel like the room is jam-packed. So, and if I feel, let me warn you, if I feel that it's not warm enough, the guests are not going to get up off their seats. That is what I guarantee you. So, ladies and gentlemen, panelist number 1, and I'm going to call all of them, and then we'll give them the warm round of applause. So, panelist number 1 is Dr. Bangani Mpangalesani, which is the Chief Executive Officer of the Innovation Hub, Dr. Stefan Brandt, who is an advisor, coach, and angel investor, Ms. Aluani Chokwe, who's a board member of the National Youth ICT Council, Mr. Mark Harris, my ex-boss at IBM once upon a time, I'm just putting it out there, the CEO of Timologong Digital Innovation Precinct, Mr. Sipho Mtombeni, our blesser for today, the Government Affairs and Public Policy Manager of Google South Africa. And last but certainly not least, Ms. Mamela Lutuli, who's the founder and CEO of Take Note IT. Ladies and gentlemen, can we give them a warm, before they even get up, they're not going to get up until I give them permission. Can we give them a warm round of applause? And welcome to you gentlemen who've just joined in. I think your space is reserved here at the front, so you can come sit here. Just joking. Yeah, if we can just have some mics. So I mean, when we look at just the, we're going to break it up into different segments. So when we look at just, the first segment, which I'd just, like to kick off with, is really trying to establish, the fragmentation or the siloed-based approach. If we can have the microphones on stage, that'd be great. And perhaps the ones that have got, the microphones, just a general question to all, and just to have different perspectives in no more than 3 minutes per speaker. In your environment, where do you see fragmentation the most, especially within the entrepreneurship and innovation ecosystem, within the environment that you represent? I think we're going to start with ladies, if we don't mind.
Okay. I was looking for the on button, but I see it's technology. I think, for me, the biggest fragmentation is that there's a mismatch in the sense that when you are in an area where people have the skills and the capacity, there's no requisite infrastructure for their development. And where there is the infrastructure, especially in your rural South Africa, you find that the infrastructure is there, but we don't have the skills that would match the infrastructure, and therefore there is a fragmentation in the sense that the one does not speak to the other. And another issue that we've been speaking about is the fact that, yes, we're speaking about Africa and South Africa in particular playing a spectator role in the epochs of all industrial revolutions. And therefore, it also boils down to the fact that there is a language barrier that we are not looking into. Yes, there's no infrastructure. Yes, the efforts to upskill and skill and reskill are being undertaken, but there's also a language barrier that we do not largely speak to, and this is why we are unable to bring everyone else along.
Thank you so much. I think for me, I'll speak from the SMME perspective. I think the biggest challenge we're facing is the fragmented funding models. We've got so many funding models that are everywhere, but they're not really talking to SMMEs, and barriers to entry are so high. They end up, all these funders, they're sitting with a long pipeline, but we as the SMMEs are not able to meet their requirement. That's number one for me. And secondly, from the training perspective as well, if you look on the pipeline of the training and all these big institutions that are training, there's a misalignment. They're not really feeding into the 4IR skills that are needed by the world. So I think that those are the two gaps that I'm seeing. Thank you.
Hi, thanks. Maybe as an opening, the topic is about innovation and entrepreneurial ecosystems and the role of the public-private partnerships. But for me, it's a wide-ranging issue that we as a country and a continent face. I think this thing goes all beginning to research. You know, it's a critical part, I think, if you look globally on any innovation system. It goes all the way to, I think, what my colleague just covered around funding. It's missing. It's around, then you have an innovation. So when you have research and funding, innovation tends to be able to thrive. And without that, you start to find a gap in the pillar. Then from a continent point of view, I think one of the biggest challenges that we will always have is the enabling environment. We see a lot of innovations all over the place, but the reality, the enabling of that, whether it's through inventions or whether it's sort of giving them workplaces where people can deliver those innovations or build out their innovations or build out their product, is very limited, despite the sprawl out of hubs and some of the focus both in government and in university. And then probably the most critical part is the role that government plays from DFIs. I think it's important, so that's development funding institutes. They play a very important role. What we find is that because of black economic empowerment, it's more almost a regulatory push around funding of entrepreneurs, but everyone does it in their own liking rather than a developmental agenda that we as a continent and a country needs. And I think that thing's got to be addressed. And then you find the next part is around market access. So unfortunately, I think you look at the amount of entrepreneurs, and even though they may even bootstrap themselves, it's up to us as a country and a continent to open up that market access. Now, we do it through a number of ways. As an example, just putting students or entrepreneurs through an immersion week in other countries, because that tends to unlock the opportunity and allows you to then matchmake between our entrepreneurs and other organizations with that. So all these ecosystems, I think we need to think about, and we need to work out how we get them to align and integrate in order to make the entire enterprise development work and successful.
Thank you. I'm going to go from a position as an angel investor and an advisor. So from an angel investor perspective, you invest in talent, you invest in an idea, but you know that idea will eventually evolve as well. So there's for me a couple of things around it. One is in terms of common shared or shared vision, shared frameworks. We speak a lot about training and education, but from a business perspective, and as an investor, for me it's about, can you monetize your idea? Can you get to a client? Can you make a sale? I find many of the startups I engage with, excellent ideas. The most difficult thing is getting through that door, getting access to that market, having the commercial experience, how to structure a deal, how to negotiate, how to close it. Talent, I see concentration of generations, but not diversity in generation. In a corporate, you'll easily see 4 generations working across in a corporate. Talking about the language barrier or any of those barriers, someone in their 40s, 50s have experienced 2, 3 economic cycles globally. They know how to deal with those, the learning they've got, the experience. Talent pools is how you can learn across. So to bring it back is many of the incubators, accelerators, I see the training part they do. As an investor, the training is great, but I need to see how I can monetize. I need to see how I can actually create an exit that will give me a 5x, 10x, 20x.
Thanks. So if I just, sum up the things or the thematics or the things that I've heard, there is, when you look at barriers, finance, You look at training and enabling environment for innovation, market access, generational mix, as you're calling it. I like that. And maybe just to shift the conversation to probably, we've now understood in the main what the main issues are, but now trying to get towards a solution kind of a thinking, right? And Dr. Brandt, since the microphone was with you, looking at, your triple P models and sustainability. So in your mind, how do you think we can implement a monitoring, evaluation, control, and learning model within triple Ps to ensure policy intent is met with intended results, especially considering the triple challenges of poverty, inequality, and unemployment? Your thoughts around that?
Okay, thanks, Andile. I'm a big supporter of Justin Rees's lean startup principles, all about validated learning. So as a startup, capital is scarce. The funding that you get is scarce. You're running a race where your capital will run out and you need new funding, either go through angel investment or get through a form of donor funding. So I think I notice a lot of vanity metrics. People like posting and doing pitch events and showing things, but pitching to your peers is not going to put a rand on the table. I'm going to get back again to access to market. Pitching to a company that could give you a contract for a product that is valuable for them that you can sell at a markup. I think that's very valuable. So from a startup lean principle perspective, how quickly can you learn from what you do, what's working, what's not working, what's the next best step that you can take? You don't have the luxury to build the end state. Smallest step that you can take that can show an impact that will lead you to product market fit. Vanity metrics, validated learning. That would be mine.
Perfect. And perhaps, speaking about, access to markets and triple Ps, maybe, just going to the actual SME, in the room who's here. Your thoughts around what Dr. Brandt is saying, specifically around the access to market, access to market and perhaps validated learning, as he calls it. Because what we typically find is that people are going to say, no, my business can't progress because I don't have money. And funding becomes the main issue. Your thoughts around that?
Thank you so much. I think from the triple P perspective, we're seeing some improvement with Treasury. They've refined it to also talk to the SMMEs. I think for me that was a big gap that has been missing because the triple P model was really based on big companies and most of the time SMMEs were excluded. So just that progress from the South African perspective to see the improvement and refinement of the triple P policy, it's a good sign for the SMMEs. And also access to market, it's a big challenge. So that's why for me, I'm a firm believer of homegrown solution and innovation. So I think as SMMEs, if we can move away from being resellers, I'm in the ICT space, and most of the time you find out that most of the SMMEs are just resellers from the OEMs. If we can really try to be more innovative and really invest mostly on research and development, it really gives you almost a first start in the access to market, because now you are able to pitch it as a unique solution and appeal. Obviously, you need to be very clear about what problem are you solving as an SMME. But I think from just to be able to constantly work on the policies, because for us, the access to market, for instance, is driven by policies, the PFMA, that everything must go out on tender, it must be codes, it must be. So all of that, it's making it very, very hard. As you know that whether we can complain till we blue on our faces about the public sector, but the reality that they are the biggest procurer. Getting into the private sector is also not easy. I might cry, I'm always saying, I always knock on the doors of the banks and say, I'm not requesting to be given things because I'm a female or I'm black, but I'm saying the field must be leveled. When I'm saying the field must be leveled, I'm saying I must get an RFQ, I must get an RFP for me to respond and test my proposal and test my pricing. So I think for us, that's the biggest thing, is being able, just that door for us to be opened, for us to be able to compete. Because as you respond to all these tenders and the RFQs, you're learning and you constantly sharpening up your knife. But if you are excluded from that, especially private sector, you know, it's still very hard to even get an audience to be able to sell your solution and sell your business. So I think those are still the big challenges that, I mean, they complain that they can't find female companies, they can't find black companies, but the reality is that they also not trying hard enough to open it for us and advertise and give us an opportunity. I mean, they will tell you straight that they don't have capacity to handle tenders. So that's why you only come by invite. But how are they going to know what are the other SMMEs that are emerging and are in the space? You know, so that's constantly the challenge we always pushing and saying, we must be given the chance. We're not asking things to be given on the silver platter, but at least the field must be leveled in a way that we are able to know that Exaro is looking for computer or something, and you are also being able to quote on that. So I think the access to market is still a big challenge. We need to constantly also influence the policies, because the PFMA is also used as a scapegoat, and everything else is being, it's almost everything must go out on an open tender. We understand the challenges of corruption we're facing, even if how good you are and your pricing is, again, it's still the challenge we're facing. So access to a market for SMM we still need to really come up with revolutionary changes on that end.
Perfect, and we'll come to that. I just want, I'm going to ask two questions, and I want two different perspectives from Mr. Harris and Ms. Chokwe from your side, right? And here are the two questions. So question one is, in the context of the digital divide, how do we achieve digital inclusivity that enables innovation and entrepreneurship in marginalized areas? So that's question number one, and Mark, I'd like you to start with these questions, especially from Tsimologong, and then Madam will come to you. And then the second question is, what specific PPP models can solve this conundrum? Ensuring equal access. We've just spoken about, the lack of access for women. So, to ensure that there's equal access for women, for youth, and also for rural innovators, which I know that definitely, that one is something that is very close to your heart. So both questions I'd like for both of you to answer with your perspectives, please.
Thanks, Andile. Let me start off at the beginning, because I think when you try and answer a question like that, you have to look at what the strategic intent is of whatever you're doing, whether in whichever ecosystem you are. So I'll give you a good example. We were approached to help Sibanya in an area where they were closing down their mines. Now, are you going to find unicorns there? Are you going to find massive opportunity there? The answer is probably no, probably no. So there's a whole impact ecosystem, which is extremely important. And I think a lot of us do this because we want to have impact rather than finding the unicorn, right? It'd be great if you find a unicorn, but the reality, it is about impact. So in that case, we had to go through everything we just spoke about. We had to work with the TVETs. We had to go into those communities and understand what their requirements are. Many of them, the last thing on their mind was around entrepreneurship, because, they were facing the risk of a mine closure. And together we partnered with the Setchabang municipality and Velcom. We worked with the TVETs. This is where triple P becomes important. We helped the community to identify people. And some of it was artisanal, there were others. But it was also a big lesson for us. And we sent these guys, but the aim is to create enterprises. That was the bottom line. Because, you'd be surprised when you create an enabling and a learning environment. All of a sudden, people will see the opportunity. One of the things that I was surprised at, the biggest hit in a rural community was 3D printing, right? It's the last place I thought, but fortunately I have smarter staff who has more insights in that community than me. So we took 3D printing to them, and we helped them to train it. And it was amazing what came out of how these guys went about creating their own enterprises, printing out craft works, printing out agricultural tools for the farmers, all the way into drone piloting in an environment that you would not expect that to happen. So, but the partnership was important because we had to partner with the municipality, we had to partner with the technical colleges there, we had to partner with the community itself, and then we needed someone to come in from a commercial point of view, because underpinning this is always going to be financials. So how do you fund projects like that? But the outputs of it is phenomenal, right? Not hunting for the unicorns, but having an impact on a community that was going to be left without being involved in the economy. So that's one. I can give you another one, right? You know, if you look at the way the triple helix work or PPP works, it's extremely important, and I think someone said it, to align these things. We have issues, we've got it. I think government has stepped up. If I look at the amount of funds that's being created, the push from BE from an ED point of view is important. I think the policy discussions that you talk about, but it is fragmented, because I think as an entrepreneur, to navigate all the fragmentation that exists, not just within government, even within private sector, even within the universities, even in the hub ecosystem. So it's very important that we can find a way, which is what the topic of this thing is, how do we align this? How do we align it? But the bottom line is, most of our smaller companies are still struggling to find capital. It's just the reality. You know, it breaks my heart when you give people seed funding and 2 years down the line, they're struggling to survive. They bootstrap themselves and they have just not managed to get funding. So I think you asked the question around monitoring and evaluation, and I think it's important, right? But with technology today, you can do it. We run our programs end to end, using every bit of data we collect along the way and making sure we can look at the real data, including monitoring and evaluation, including where funding comes from, including who the key experts are, if it's a very technical area. And being able to bridge that gives you a great monitoring and evaluation capability so that you can produce positive results and make these entrepreneurs more successful.
Thank you very much. I must also state that I'm covered partially by what Mark has said. So we always say in our work that for us to ensure that we bridge the digital divide, we capacitate and we call for the investment in infrastructure. And I'm going to give you examples. Firstly, in 2024, last year, the Basic Education Department amended the national schools curriculum to include coding and robotics for grade R up until grade 9. So the reason why we then call for an audit even of your infrastructure and your skills is because when we go to schools in rural South Africa, you find that there's a computer lab. It's been closed for the past 5 years because the principal is afraid that the kids are going to break these computers. They don't have teachers who would teach computing to these children, right? So the triple P would also be anchored by the fact that we want government to ensure that, in fact, both government and the private sector, that there is affordability, but there's also access and connectivity. And this would be in the form of government providing concessions for the spectrum. When that happens, you get the private sector to deploy their infrastructure, especially in your rural South Africa, but also subsidize connectivity so that we take everyone along. And another thing that we've done as the National Youth ICT Council, we have hackathons and mechathons on a yearly basis whereby we put young people in an area. The last one was in Johannesburg, based on the pre-street, the explosion. So we put university students in a room to say, come up with a solution to ensure that there would be infrastructure security in local government. We put them in a room over 24 hours, they come up with a solution, but from there on, Salga says, we like the solution, however, we don't have the money to take it forward. So that would then be a part where the private sector then comes in to say, okay, it's fine, we can commercialize or support the solution that you've come up with to a particular extent. So that is in efforts, in fact, two ways that the private sector and public sector can work together, but we also need to get a buy-in from your communities. If we're building computer or infrastructure that has an AI capability in rural South Africa, get the buy-in from communities. We go back to that language barrier, skill everyone in the community, get the community to also have some sort of ownership in the infrastructure that we're investing so that we know that its security is also assured. Thank you.
Brant, I'm going to come to you, and Ms. Lutuli. I think I'm going to come to you because you guys both spoke about, in my notes, you both spoke about market access, right, as being something that's important. You spoke about a triple P model where National Treasury is now coming to the party. So here's the question for both of you, starting with Dr. Brant, and I'd like to get your perspective. So innovation accelerates when connected to market demand, right? And so which best practice, in your mind, which best practice triple P models, that have been shared either today or previously, are ready for replication or scaling so that you accelerate the commercialization of ideas into market-ready solutions? So just in your experience.
I'm not an expert on the different models, but on the market access, those who've watched Dragon's Den, one of the dragons always say, is there a gap in the market and a market in the gap? So there's lots of ideas that people have for a market, but is it a viable business? I think for me, that's always my starting point. And viable means profitable, that you eventually don't need funding, that you eventually don't need an investor. You are the owner of the business. Equity is the most expensive form of capital that you get. Working capital through a bank is the cheapest form of capital you get. The dilemma you've got as a startup or SME is you don't have financial track record or sufficient funds in order to get a working capital facility. Then you revert to either to an investor or you start looking at funding. But I think funding, the way it sounds to me, I don't think that's sustainable, continuously going back to fundings. Funding is supposed to get you out of the blocks, to validate your idea, get you to a point that you can carry on, and that's why the validated learning. So not an expert on the different models. But my ideal state would be is if the main topic, and you started off to say sustainable, and we talk market, that means profitable business that you do. The funding and the capital investment that you raise, how to maximize that investment in order to get to the point where you find the right product market fit. And then you get that hockey stick. You gave examples. I've got an example of a company that I invested in a couple of years ago. For EdTech company, 3-4 years, their grand mission was how to change the way we read and learn. The barrier that they had was from the global editors and publishers that were scared about what tech would do and what AI would do. They pivoted 5 months ago. For 4 years, not a profitable business. They pivoted 4 months ago into a pure AI play. Their month-on-month growth is in excess of 25% per month in terms of revenue growth. They're going to be profitable at the end of this month. So within 5 months, they'll be profitable. For 4 years, they weren't profitable. In 4 months, they're going to be profitable. They do not have to go back to raise again. So they own the equity in that business. It's theirs. They will get to the point where they can actually buy out the angel investors and they can be the 100% owners of that company. That for me is the ideal state. So taking that capital, how do you learn the the quickest, to maximize it so that you don't have to give away equity, that you don't need funding, that you can get into the formal stream where you can use working capital and it can be a tax deduction, how you do your finances, and then you expand.
Perfect. I like what you're saying as we're giving the microphone to Ms. Lutuli. Is there a gap in the market and a market in the gap? I like that. Madam?
Thank you so much. I think the research, firstly, of understanding, like you're saying, that there's no point of pivoting any business and you don't have the market. So I'll talk about my case study, and it takes time. 3 years ago, we collaborated with CSIR, and we were looking on developing the homegrown cybersecurity SIM solution, which doesn't exist in the country. And it took us, as the SMMEs, we were quite privileged to be able to meet CSIR halfway and be partners, 50-50 partners of developing this homegrown SIM solution. We've done the proof of concept. Only now it has taken off. And now we're starting the deployment of rolling it out countrywide. Like you're saying that equity is the most expensive way of so looking for funding from investors, it must be your last resort. As an SMME, you need to try, and I'm talking from the IT perspective because I'm in the IT space, at least you do have an opportunity of not, if you're looking for funding, it won't be too much, or you can even start the project without really creating many debts. That's the biggest advantage of being in the IT space. So what we've done, the case that we've done with CSIR, it's starting to pay off now because it's a homegrown SIM solution. There's a huge market. We all know that cybersecurity is the threat that the whole world is facing. You know, if you look on the World Economic Forum report, they flag it as top 5 of one of the risks the world is facing at this day and age. So that's another successful case study that has worked. From the Triple P point of view, I'm quite privileged to be the board member of the Gautrain. And the Gautrain is a huge success of the Triple P that has worked, but now how do we scale it and roll it out countrywide? Again, the fragmentation and the misalignment, now it has to go to the national level because it was a provincial project, just to find that and get the alignment of all these parties and also the different provinces that they are looking at rolling it out. It's complicated. You know, it's, again, going back to the policy on saying how do we always align our policies and refine them, you know, and not leave them as a static document. You know, things are evolving and so are the policies. They must constantly evolve. But it's one of the success case studies that are telling you that there are many Triple Ps that are successful, that can work, you know, and are scalable.
Thank you. So let me then, I'm going to ask each of my panelists this question, and no state of the nation, because now I'm getting to the, you know, you get to that segment where they say neck on the block. There was another word I was going to use that they normally use in corporate, but it's not appropriate for here. I will say neck on the block, not something else on the block. So in your mind, and Madam, we'll start with you, and we'll just, you know, carry on along the line. And these are your concluding remarks, in effect. But, you know, what is the single biggest, and I've noted a couple that you guys have mentioned, but what is, in your mind, what is the single biggest ecosystem barrier that, as a collective, we must be able to address? And secondly, because it's very easy to throw the javelin and hope someone catches it. So I want you to throw the javelin internally in terms of, you know, what practical commitment can your organization make or initiate immediately after this event to strengthen the ecosystem alignment? So is it a partnership? Is it a policy shift? Do you sit on a board of Gautrain and therefore, you know, is there a resource sharing issue? So just give me some thoughts around that, just in 2 minutes from each of the panelists as your concluding remarks.
Thank you very much. So with us, it would be advocacy that we are making a commitment to. South Africa is the most economically unequal society in the world. This is a research by the World Bank. And the inequality is evident in a number of factors. So what we are going to be doing, we're going to be acting like a watchdog because we think government is failing to keep the private sector accountable, especially your telecommunications companies. Our country has policies that says if a telecommunication company wants to operate in the country, there are various factors that they need to adhere to, and there are various issues that they must implement in the country, especially that speaks to the previously disadvantaged Black South Africans. So we will be acting as a watchdog. In fact, we are preparing for the state of the ICT in the country, where we will be taking stock of your telecommunications players and the impact that they've had on society as per their license, regulations, and recommendations by government. Thank you.
I think for me, it should start with us. I think as South Africans, we don't have the sense of agility and agency. You know, I think if all of us collectively as individuals, we can look on ourselves, what impact are we doing, what are we doing in our small corners? Because we're very quick to constantly pointing on government and forgetting that government is us. I think for me as South Africans, if we can have that mindset of holding each other accountable, including our government and the politicians and our leaders. You know, I think as society, we're more on the passive side and hoping that by sitting in the corner and complain, things will resolve itself. I think if we can have that spirit, but also from my side, what I've seen and is the gap, it's like now there's a big buzz of AI, but we're not ready. If we can drive the training, you know, because I think we're really missing out. We've got a young population, but are we preparing the young population to really ride the wave of the AI and the 4IR? So if we can really accelerate the training, because having the know-how, it's so important. If we can capacitate our youth with really the right skill set that are needed by the world, we as the country will flourish and ride the wave of the 4IR and AI. Thank you.
Thanks. For me, it's quite simple. I think one of the gaps because of fragmentation, etc., is how do we create clear pathways for society? I think whether you're a matriculant sitting in Limpopo or a ICT organization in Johannesburg, the pathway to success is not clear because of the fragmentation. So I think it's very important, that includes things like training, I think the second thing that's important for me is to continue the advocacy around creating funding. Yes, you can bootstrap yourself, but there's more. I think the success rate of startups is less than 83% of them fail, 83%. That for me is just unacceptable. And that's because there's no pathways and the funding is not there. Not everyone can bootstrap themselves. Many of them guys have great innovations, highly talented in Africa, but they're still failing. And unfortunately, the bulk of, yes, you can train, you can incubate, you can accelerate, but if you don't provide these guys funding at least over the first couple of years, the guys are going to struggle to succeed. So advocacy and just making sure those pathways are clear.
So you ask for commitment. I'm here in my personal capacity as advisor. So the commitment I can give is my network of corporate professionals that are curious about the impact they can have and industries that they are interested in but don't necessarily have experience in. So AI or tech, but they've got experience in a specific industry. So founder-advisor matching, how to get out of the block, how to maximize that funding that you get to start up. Validated learning again, how to share the lessons of, I've seen this over multiple instances, this is a good idea, this is how you could tweak. This is my experience, you can consider. That's from my side.
Thank you ever so much. You know, there's a mental note that I would like all of us to think about when we look at triple Ps. Because typically, I mean, triple Ps, we always think about it as just purely funding and only about funding, right? So that's typically what we think about triple Ps. But one of the things I'm now learning, or I've taken note of, especially from just, listening to the gentleman and doing some research, is that, it's not just about funding. So triple Ps are also the integrated mechanism for the alignment of stakeholders. And I think Gautrain is a very important example where you've got government, you've got private sector, you've got NGOs, you've got academia, and to bridge the identified systematic gaps, because without the NGOs, for an example, how are you then going to do the training in those communities? Because certainly it's going to be very difficult for Mark Harris's ex-employer for IBM to go into Orange Farm and do training, because there's gaps, cultural gaps and otherwise, and language barriers. And so for me, the triple P then says that we need to look at the entire ecosystem so that we are not just spinning wheels, as I was saying, but we're actually able to have the impact. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Can we please give them an extremely warm round of applause? No, that's not warm enough. No, we're going to start again. No, we're going to start, please. We're going to start again. And if we need to do a standing ovation, we'll do that. Can we please give them a warm round of applause? Thank you very much, much appreciated. So we then move to, and really much appreciated those insights, much appreciated. So we're then going to move into, because again, today is all about practicality. It's not just really about the theory. And so we're going to move into the segment where we're going to do flash case studies. So we've got 3 curated, fast-paced presentations, and I'm hoping that the technical team, you've got the presentations ready as I'm speaking, showcasing successful, replicable triple Ps and ecosystem alignment efforts. And the objective here, as I'm saying, is that, is to showcase successful, because this is not theory, to showcase successful non-academic, meaning that it's not just theoretical, triple P-led models that have addressed a specific fragmentation challenge that can also be replicated and scaled for growth. And so we're going to have presentations from Timologong, and I'm going to steal their thunder in just, explaining exactly what it's going to be focused on. So the Timologong one, because after this, they are going to come up, they know what their time allocation is, so I'm not going to come up and introduce them. So the Timologong precinct, which is the presentation number 1, the focus area is around demand-driven innovation and support services, and they will present a triple P model and or successful ecosystem alignment, demonstrating how the precinct connects entrepreneurs and innovators directly to real industry problems or procurement pathways. I think we did hear Mark speaking about these pathways, and these procurement pathways to OEMs and corporates to pull innovation rather than push isolated projects. So that would be Timologong. The second one would be our Blesser from Google South Africa. The focus will be around shared infrastructure and technology access, showcase a triple P model or program to provide shared digital infrastructure or tech access, demonstrating successful digital inclusivity, talent development, or market linkage to solve a fragmentation problem for emerging innovators. So Google is number 2, and then we've got Paikta, which will focus, the focus is on policy, inclusivity, and regional integration. They'll be presenting a triple P model or successful ecosystem alignment alignment initiative that have successfully leveraged regional platforms like the Africa Free Continental or influenced policy levers to create market linkages or achieve inclusivity in terms of women, youth, and rural innovators. Ladies and gentlemen, tech, I hope that you're ready. With the presentations. Okay, tech is ready. Can we then have presentation number 1 from the Timologong precinct? And as soon as they are done, we'll then have Google and then Paikta after that. Ladies and gentlemen, you know what your time allocation is. Let's give them a warm round of applause. So, as Mark is coming up to present, we speak about the challenges that we face when going to communities. I come from rural Eastern Cape. We speak about this AI and all of these things. These things that are unknown, anything that's unknown. I don't know in your culture, but in my culture it's called witchcraft. So AI is one of those witchcrafts that exist. So how do we then normalize witchcraft so that we're able to achieve the things that we want to do? How do we make sure that the AI agents are not witchcraft and are bent at the stake? So this is really the kind of things that we need to be looking at. Mark, over to you, sir.
Looks like it's stuck on the old one. Thanks. Good morning, everyone. I thought we should do a case study which involves not just the South African government, but in this case, we work closely with the Irish government. So when you look at a case study like this, and you look at whether it's the Irish trying to invest here, or whether it's the French, or whether it's the German, or whether it's South African, it's pretty important that you align the program so that you can actually have the type of impact that you want. So when we look at the manifestation of how this occurs, so Tsimologong is part of WITS, it's owned by WITS, it is a level one. We've had huge impact in the incubation of startups, and there's about 250 plus entrepreneurs through a lot of things. Plugging into the innovation systems that exist within the university, all around building out our own ecosystem. So based on that, if you look at what we do, I think we spoke about it earlier, it's fragmented ecosystems, right? We spoke about that, and you find that everyone says we have an ecosystem of entrepreneurs. You will find when it gets to research, and that's one of the big gaps that I see, is as an example, a lot of the initiatives we do is not led by research. It's not. And that's why organizations like the CSIR, like the DSI, like the DTI play an important part in making sure that before we even identify entrepreneurs to embark upon this journey, which is very fragmented, it's how do you make sure that these pathways exist so that they know which pathway they should go down. Recently for the French, we did something called Girls in STEM. And it breaks my heart, right? Because when you look at that, we brought students that are still in females, mainly in high school. And if you look at some of them from the rural areas, so in this case, we went to Mpumalanga. And what you found is that they're not even exposed to some of the basic forms of technology. So it's fine to us to stand here and talk about entrepreneurs or finding a unicorn. But the reality, our problem as a country starts much earlier. It starts when we have to be aspirational, especially in some of these students in rural schools, about what the future could look like, but also start to enable them. And enabling them is necessarily about how we make that work and making sure there's commercial insights. So there's big research gaps. When I look at some of the things that, and I think we've heard the previous speaker about commercialization. So So within a university, commercialization is important. Within anywhere, commercialization is important. Because if you don't get commercialization as a hub or as a university or as an institution, right, or as an investor, correct, you're not going to have money to sustain or to grow whatever initiative you're tackling. So it's not about capitalism, because a lot of people do this for impact. But the reality, research is a key part of shaping everything that an entrepreneur will go through, all the way ensuring that they're going after the right market and that the products are correct. There's a lot of unvalidated solutions, right? Where startups build products, they waste resources solutions, and that's why we have an 83% failure rate, right? Within the environment. So very often, I do a trick, which is terrible, by the way, but someone will come up with a great innovation, either there's a judge or a mentor. I will say to them, this looks like a fantastic local solution, but have you benchmarked how this would work commercially, globally? And every one of them will say yes. And then I'll take out my iPad or my phone, and I'll put the description of their product in, and the shock comes, right? Because one of the guys here from DSI has got this pet hate about copycat technology. He knows who he is, right? He's right. He's right. Yeah? Because one, we don't have the manufacturing capability at the type of cost. So when someone does copycat technology, like I did this like last week, and I show him, I say, here it is. If you look in China, there's about 60 of those products that you want to build, and you're going to struggle to build, and your pricing model is already wrong because they're selling at 1/3 of the price. So I think as a country and through the PPPs, we have to start, unfortunately, making the right selections, but also steering to people. I think you said it just now, Andile, it's the gap in the gap. Yeah? Where is that gap, and how do we push people through that gap in the market? But if it's merely copycat, the fact that it's manufacturing locally, locally, even though it may be available broadly, you're still going to hit the commercialization issue. You will still hit it going forward. So, and that's why we put down that so many people have gone into, they've won challenge awards, they've been invested in, even from private equity or from venture capital, but they hit the harsh reality of, is that market really available to them to go forward? And then supplier changes. I think we heard one of the others speak about it. So corporates struggle to identify compliant local suppliers. For me, it's almost like to meet technical and regulatory requirements. It's almost like a barrier, because you heard people will say, we don't want to be a reseller. We want our own product. I'll give you an example. We're talking to the Chinese at the moment. Maybe it'll help you just from a scale point of view. So the Irish is and the reason it's like a showcase product for us is because of the impact it has when we take 7 or 8 entrepreneurs into Ireland, matchmake them with companies similar to them, and they get trained and mentored and coaches more from an international perspective than what we can do here. But we've met with, as you can imagine, there's been a lot of delegations here recently. But I think it's very interesting. If anyone wants to research it, it's called JITRI, J-I-T-R-I, and maybe it gives you the scope of the scale of which the Chinese do. So they partner with universities, so they use a triple P model. What they then do, they would align to, let's call it cybersecurity, to a research competency, and they would allow a South African research entrepreneur to come into China and to actually set up, and there's lots of money behind it, actually set up a capability in China in order to grow out their product, to scale their product, access to international markets. So you start to see those models formulate more and more. With the Irish, it's, we go there, we take these entrepreneurs. So I don't know if you know, Ireland's like one of these tech hubs in the world. So whether it's Salesforce.com or Microsoft or whatever, they tend to come in, and through the engagement with them, they don't become resellers, but they do expose locally developed products that have been showcased. so that it can be taken. And if it wasn't through some of our partnerships in government, it would be hard to do because it's an expensive exercise to go through. So I see a lot of showcases happening locally, but if we don't do also work on a global stage, it's going to be difficult to unlock market access for those entrepreneurs in doing that. So I agree with the previous speaker. Just to be a reseller of somebody else's products is not, I think, the agenda. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but that's a commercial transaction that especially the ICT companies go through. This is more about how we identify these gaps and real solutions that will actually help to reposition us. So there's innovative models, right? So when you look at a triple P, right, we have a lot of discussions with government about, have you identified, and this is where research kicks in, have you identified what the market need is? What are the real industry challenges? Remember about just using copycat technologies or people quickly developing an app. It's a bit deeper than that. So there's PPP. One of our winners recently was very interesting for me because there's two different case studies. So the one is this guy is in the agri-tech. Now when people say they're in agri-tech and you look behind it, you don't normally find much, unfortunately. Some of them may be involved in manufacturing of fertilizer, right? And they would see, so there's technology involved. But this guy, and he's from KZN, was just incredible for me. He's gone all the way through, whether it's precision farming, whether it's using drones to track the quality of soil. He's gone into climate modeling. He's gone into helping farmers around new technology to do irrigation of their farms. He tracks the water sources. He does research. So from an agri-tech point of view, we have that talent. We have that talent. And so when you start to create an entrepreneur who puts all those talents together, you start to see success. And you can see it, you can touch it. And that's why it's important. So I think the Chinese model wears all these specializations, whether it's in clean tech, whether it's in agri-tech or whatever it is, and how you put that together to ensure the success of the entrepreneurs. So you hear me say it's a lot. 83% failure is not good enough. I mean, there are people who can afford to fail once, twice, so everyone says, oh, you know, agile, and you as an entrepreneur, you should fail 1, 2, 3 times. For some people, they don't have the capital to be able to do that. They just don't have access to funding to be to. So we have to improve. Yes, you'll always get those start fast, fail fast. You're always going to get those. But the reality is we need to try and improve that success rate of entrepreneurs. And we're not talking about hunting for a unicorn. It's about someone who lives in a rural area and just doesn't have the opportunity to fail more than once or twice. So these innovation programs and what you target becomes extremely important. And that's why you'll hear me talking about pathways to success. What are these pathways? If I ask people in this room now, would anyone to describe a pathway to success for me? If you're an entrepreneur, anyone bold enough to get up and do that? Answers no. I wouldn't, right? If I was in the audience, I wouldn't say, hey, here's an entrepreneur, let's say in whatever, cybersecurity. What's your pathway to success? It's very difficult for people to navigate that pathway so that they don't run the risk of failure. And then there is corporate. So again, this PPP is important. How do you validate from a corporate? So how do you get it to, I'll give you an example again, where we work with the city of Joburg. They did something called the Innovation Challenge for their employees, and it was fantastic, right? So we went to the community, we got there what they think the city should fix, and then we went elsewhere and we found out what they is. But it's a real PPP, right? Because there was also a private entity involved as well as the triple helix with the university. But the reality, you still need to find corporates who are going to adopt it. No matter how good your innovation is, you still need the corporates to adopt it. And that is where this partnership becomes extremely important. Am I running out of time? Okay, I'm going to stop in a minute. So the reality is that you've got to find the corporates to be able to create that market access. There's some great innovations that never get to market, and I think it's time that as a country we need to stop it. So I'm going to stop there. There was others, but I think that's good enough. Thank you.
Okay, good morning all. Do I need Andile to come back up and get you fired up a bit? All right, is it coming on? Good morning. Anyway, let me get started. I don't want to take too much time. My name is Sipho Mtombeni. I am from Google. I manage government affairs and public policy. So our engagements and our partnerships with government is something that I deal with on a daily basis. So from a Google point of view, how I'm going to deal with this, I'm not going to just share one case study. I'm going to share a couple of things that we're doing. The main thing is that in terms of our approach at Google, we follow a more ecosystem-based approach, making sure that we're addressing various different aspects that have been spoken about today, from infrastructure to skilling, to policies, and also access to technology. Those are the ways that we believe needs to be done in order for us to be able to get to a point where the partnerships that we have with government, but also with civil society and other corporates kind of bring out the promise of AI that we've spoken about, the witchcraft that Andile has spoken about. Is that coming along? All right, so with that in mind, I'm going to share a few case studies and a few things that we are doing sorry? Oh, okay, cool. I'm just going to share a few case studies of what we're doing on the continent, in Africa and in South Africa, in the various different aspects and the various different things that I've spoken about. My slides have disappeared now, okay. Witchcraft. All right, so as many of you might know, Google has been a AI-first company since about 2016, with various different products and various different things that we have. But really, Google's mission has been to organize the world's information and make it universally accessed and useful for people. And what we believe is that AI can help us deliver on that mission in ways that seemed impossible before and can benefit all of us and everyone. So, okay. Is it this thing, the connector, or is it from, if you have another one? I have another one. Let's check it. Yeah. Okay, anyway, let me get going. So from our products that you have, such as Search, Google Maps, Google Lens, you might know now that we have products like Gemini. Is it okay? We have products like Gemini, Notebook LM, VO3, other aspects and other tools that we have in relation to AI. But really just talking about how our approach is, we try to maximize AI across different pillars, 3 different pillars, and I'll talk to examples in each of those. So the first one is to make sure that we are bringing economic benefit for all. The secondly is about helping governments to innovate using AI, and then also driving scientific breakthroughs through the technology. There is a 4th pillar which recently we've added, but I hadn't added into my slides over the weekend, but it is around kind of preserving our arts and culture as a society, again, using the technology. Okay. Oh, do you want to just change the display settings? Okay, let's go here. Where is it? Because there. Cool. Do you know where to go to? Okay. Go to that strategic partnerships, yeah. Do you want to unplug, baby? Okay, technology. So in any case, maybe I can continue while you are finding this. So our first part in terms of making sure that we can do and bring economic activity for all, we approach and have various different programs, for instance, with government, with business, and with workers directly. So with governments, for instance, we have a program called Data Commons. We have a program called Data Commons where we've provided as much data as possible across various different countries, especially on the African continent, which we've seen is one of the issues that African governments deal with, is having access to data. And through our Data Commons partnership with governments on the continent, including in South Africa, we are able to provide them this tool where they then are able to make use of those to make policy decisions as they move forward. And with businesses, for instance, we have a program called Hustle Academy. Hustle Academy is a 5-day boot camp where we train SMEs how to use AI tools in order to be able to kind of effectively run their business and be a bit more productive and run efficiently, making use of AI within their business. In relation with workers themselves, some of the programs that we have, and with people directly, some of the programs that we have, for instance, we have a program with We Think Code to train 12,000 young people, school leavers, on AI skills in order to be able to bridge that gap from where they've graduated college but are just lacking that kind of AI skill for what the job market is looking for. So with those types of programs, we are able to kind of bridge that gap where we've not been able to see. Sorry, I just need to get my slides. Okay. Okay, that's not what we want to display. Guys, that's not what we want to display. Sorry. No. Sorry, my slides have disappeared again. Okay. Apologies that technology is failing us, and how funny that it would fail us when the technology guy is speaking. All right. No, it keeps going away when this thing plugs in. Because there it is.
Then when you plug it in, it goes.
Because it's not even displaying there. All right. In terms of, where was I? Sorry, I just need to see where my slides are. So one of the things that we're trying to do as well in relation to access to tools. So I've mentioned, for instance, that we have Gemini. So one of the things and one of the programs that we're currently running is a Gemini AI Pro free access for students. So students above the age of 18 in South Africa, and we've partnered with the Department of Higher Education and Training, as well as the DCDT, to roll this out to as many students across colleges, universities, TVETs, so that they can start making use of the pro-level versions of Gemini. So you guys know of the Gemini tool, right? And you've seen it? Yes, okay, I'm seeing a few nods. So this is a tool that can support research and critical thinking, can support and enhance academic writing, but also helps with supporting personalized learning and support for young people. So over the next, I think the deadline for people to get the access is 9 December. After that, they would be able to get access for a period of 12 months where they will use the tool for free. The pro version of the tool, for instance, costs it's a subscription of about 429 rands 99. So for the next 12 months, they'll be getting that for free in South Africa and a few other countries on the African continent. It's unfortunate that we don't have our slides on because there's a QR code I wanted you to scan to get access to that tool. Because even if you are looking at master's students, PhDs, etc., they are also able to access those tools. So the second part I talked about in terms of the pillars was around helping government to innovate. So we've been working, for instance, with the university in South Africa. I can't divulge this yet because we're still kind of in the workings, and one of the departments in the country to build an AI tool that's going to help with the policy cycle, right? So it will help to be able to review all of the policies within the country, determine which ones require kind of updating, which ones are out of line with the others, and provide insights based on the various data and information that we can put into the tools. And then this is, again, how we're making sure that governments are able to make use of the tools and get that. But also with government, our partnerships that we have in the country, currently we're looking to train 1,000 public sector officials on cybersecurity and cloud skills in order, again, to be able to, once we bring these tools to them, they will be able to make use of them directly. The third pillar I had spoken about was on scientific breakthroughs. So with scientific breakthroughs, we're doing quite a lot of work on the continent and in the country on things like food security, on climate change, on healthcare and maternal healthcare. So again, here we partner with a lot of people. So for instance, one of the things that we have in South Africa, we've partnered with an organization called ID Insight, who worked with the government as well to be able to bring, they developed a natural language powered chatbot that reduced barriers for access to critical information on maternal health care. So an expectant mother would be able to kind of go onto her phone, ask questions about her pregnancy because she's not able to get to the clinic. Instead of having to pay 20 rands to go to a clinic, get into a taxi, she was able to access the tool in the districts that we ran this pilot and ask questions. I woke up, I'm feeling a little bit odd. What do you think? Is there something that I must be concerned about? So those are kind of just some of the ways that we're trying to make sure to support the South African government in healthcare using AI tools. The last pillars I want to talk about, again, in terms of scientific breakthroughs, is some of the partnerships that we have with universities. So just a month ago, we announced that we would be providing a $1 million grant to the Wits Mind Institute and to the University of Pretoria each. Again, here, we are supporting them to provide PhD and master's students who are going to be doing fundamental research in AI for Africa and for South Africa to be able to do that and be funded through this grant. But some of the work that we're doing, and again, it's part of the approach that we have as Google, is the understanding that we might not necessarily have the necessary context for all of the various different applications that Africans would need. I can't trust John, who has built a tool and is sitting in San Francisco, to be able to address some of those issues that have already been spoken to about. So we partner quite a lot on the continent as well. So for instance, where we've worked with Masakane AI to bring 40 African languages into digital content and make it more accessible for the tools. But we've worked with, for instance, institutions like PANSALB, the Pan-African South African language boards, to be able to bring and translate a lot of the terms. So what we did, we started the project with 100 terms that are used within the kind of AI and technology space. So for instance, what is artificial intelligence in isiXhosa or in isiZulu? and we worked with them to put together an index of terms in those two. So we did Afrikaans, English, Zulu, and Swahili. And we put that together. It's online, it's running now, again, to be able to make some of this languaging and some of this conversation a little bit more accessible to our communities as well. And the last one I want to talk about is a one that we've done with our Google DeepMind team, where we've developed a curriculum both for primary schools all the way up until varsities on AI tools. So these curriculum that we've developed is to be able to provide teachers, so it will be a train-the-trainer type of program that we're running currently with the African Institute of Mathematical Sciences, but also working with the government to train teachers on AI tools, especially teachers within the STEM fields, and provide them with the necessary resources so that they can then take that to further train. I think I'll stop there because of the time, but thank you very much. I think if you have any questions, we'll engage post the session. Thanks.
Yo. Good morning. Okay, I'm going to go old school so that I avoid AI witchcraft. I'll go old school. I've been allocated 10 minutes, but we've reduced it to 5 minutes to accommodate. We're running out of time. Whatever I miss out, you'll catch later. Okay, now I'm from PICTA. I'm the founder and the president of PICTA. It's a Pan-African Information Communication Technology Association, a non-profit organization operating right through Africa. South African born. Colleagues, across Africa, I think I need to give context. Across Africa, we speak confidently about entrepreneurship and innovation as drivers of transformation. Yet the reality is that many of our ecosystems remain deeply fragmented, with government, private sector, civil society, academia, funders, community structures, often working in parallel rather than in partnership. PICTA's continental engagements have exposed this challenge clearly, but they have also shown that what becomes possible when partners align behind a coordinated, innovation-led architecture. In these environments, PICTA often serves as both the integrator and the enabler, creating the connective tissue that turns collaboration into real impact. I've got two flash cases that I'm going to go really very fast through them. And one is looking at South Africa's Smart Community Development Framework and the Lesotho Coffee Project. I thought I was going to do both of them, but I'm going to go through one. Both examples demonstrate the power of Triple P in unlocking inclusive innovation, empowering young people, and enabling economic transformation, with PICTA playing a catalyst role in making the Triple P model function effectively. The first case study is the one on South Africa. The background, quick one. South Africa's community development landscape has historically been marked by fragmentation, duplicated programs, uncoordinated resources, limited integration between government, private sector, research institution, and community structures. The speakers before me have highlighted all these things and how they've tried to enable and align these phenomena. But it's not always, and the one that I like most is the one that makes reference to rural communities. I'm a rural boy, I come from the rural of Herschel, and what we're talking about here, they've never seen even light of, some people have never even seen internet. They don't understand what internet is. And here we are. The SCDF brings a new model and coordinated Triple P economic support by multi-stakeholders. At the center sits PICTA integrating digital innovation, global OEM certifications, technopreneurship, cooperative development, and the digital hub model. The triple P structure that I want to highlight quickly, I'm not going to go into detail. We've got government playing a role, and government, it will be Department of DCOG, okay? That goes with, and the municipalities. CWP, we've got CSIR in the triple P model. We've got SADET, we've got PowerJacks, we've got TechnoRain, SEPS, which is a very important element in the partnership. Private security companies, we've got NPCs and NPOs, and community radio station, we've even got community patrollers. Then you've got PICTA anchoring digital innovation, basically bringing global OEM partnerships and incubation support that we run out of Gqeberha. This is a multi-layer triple P designed for systematic alignment. I'm sure you've seen, but we don't have time. Key innovation drivers introduced. We're looking at global OEM certifications and digital skills. We're looking at digital hub infrastructure, sector-specific cooperatives. We've got structured CWP exit pathway. CWP is community, it is your community work program. They've got lots of unemployed youth that they have. Only for Gqeberha, they've got 1,900. For East London side, they've got 2,200. And if you multiply those two numbers right across the country, you can see what it is, what challenge we are looking at. We've got technology enabler, safety, innovation. Then the ecosystem achievements, basically breakthrough achievements include establishing of a smart safety security cooperative prototype, agreements that CW forms that primary talent and recruitment base. We're looking at word-based recruitment for equitable participation. We're looking at coherent integration of ICT training, alignment with law enforcement, which is SEPS. And core lessons from this work, because government sets mandate and coherence, CSIR provides scientific and technical rigor. SADET, PowerJacks, TechnoRain strengthens the infrastructure and community layers. SEPS ensures compliance, safety, legitimacy, and integration with national price policing. PICTA drives digital innovation, ecosystem design, youth pathways, CWP anchors scale through mass participation, private sector fuels technology and employment, civil society enables inclusion and community ownership. The one case study, the Lesotho one, Shem, I think I'm going to take questions and go through it later if it permits, the post permits. I think Africa, in closing, Africa does not lack innovation. Africa lacks alignment. When government, private sector, research institutions, civil society, communities work separately, we get fragmentation. When they work together under a unified triple P architecture, we unlock inclusive, digital, innovation-driven economies. PICTA's work across Africa shows that this alignment is not only possible, it is already happening, it is scalable, and it is the pathway for Africa's next frontier of prosperity. Thank you.
Can we please give our case studies a warm round of applause, an energetic round of applause, a proper round of applause. Thank you very much to the colleagues at the Tsimologong Precinct, Google South Africa, and also PICTA. We're now heading into the last segment of today, and yeah, you can see that we are, chasing a bit of time. And really, this is just the whole idea was we're going to give sufficient time to be able to bring together everything, reflect on everything, bring everything together, including the commitments, from the people that I'm going to, invite on stage, and then also create a roadmap. But, thief is, time is a thief, as they say. I'm trying to translate from isiXhosa to English. You can see the bundles are not properly formulating at this present moment. However, so ladies and gentlemen, please then give a warm round of applause to the following speakers. Mr. Toto Matsiriso, who is the Director, Global Projects of Department of Science and Innovation. Ms. Mamela Lutuli, Founder and CEO of Take Note IT. Mr. Sonwabo Mdwaba, founder and president of PICTA, Mr. Walter Mudau, independent IT consultant. Only now, and only now, can you give them that warm round of applause? Sir, on the laptop, ma'am, can you, the gentleman behind you there on the laptop, can you please give the warm round of applause? No, we can see. No, only him, only him. Only him. That's right, that's right. Thank you very much. Okay, so gentlemen, I'm going to make this very simple. I'm going to ask, I'm going to start in this order, Mr. Titi and Mr. Mudau. I'm going to ask in that order because you guys are new on stage. Yeah, we need you here, madam. Your insights are very important. So what I'd like, just in just a couple of minutes, is just a reflection on the insights that have been shared today from the panelists, and also wrap a bow around it. You know, when I say wrap a bow, meaning that in your own words, you know, how do you then consolidate everything that was spoken about, but also your insights, and share those insights. So let me start with Mr. Matsiriso and Mr. Mudau, please.
Thank you, moderator. From my perspective, there are a few things that I would like to share, and I think some of them speakers shared. Maybe I'll add with one or two. But one of the things that one of the speakers said that I think maybe just to emphasize is with regard to the barriers, especially within Africa. I think whether we like it or not, we still see traces of colonialism that is affecting Africa. For example, when you look into the the Francophone as well as the Anglophone countries, there are still a lot of language barriers. And as a result, they impact on intra-Africa trade or intra-Africa business. Secondly, still on the very same thought, there is still loyalty to some of the colonial masters, whereby, for example, you find a country that was associated to France prefers doing business with France instead of their neighbors who are like 500 kilometers away on a similar thing where they even get less returns instead of doing them locally within Africa. The other one is also, and I think there's also lack of access. I mean, I think my colleague here spoke about access to finance, or maybe companies not being given a chance. There is that. I mean, if there's no access to support the SMEs, obviously, you find those that we call the missing middle, whereby an entity is over the stage of being regarded as grassroots and just getting a grant, but also it's not even at the stage where they are able to secure a loan. And like they say, every SME or innovator, they'll tell you to stay far away from getting loans from the bank and so forth when you start, because they do not cater for the risk. The second last point that I maybe also would like to share, there are a lot of industry associations, and I'm speaking on the perspective of South Africa. There are a lot of them, and as a result, it's difficult to coordinate or to work with as officials. You find a point where you lack a pipeline, and that's personally one of my frustrations, because you look into the landscape and you would wish to get proposals, let's say from the energy sector, but now you have this association in Gauteng, 5, 6 of them and so forth. Even if we've been told that there is BUSA, there is so, but there is still that fragmentation within the sector. You can't just throw the net wide, or you can't have that nodal points. And I think that's one thing that we really need to work on as associations, as government, to make sure that the net reaches everyone. Sometimes it's not that we don't have money as government. Sometimes we may even have a budget, let's say of 9 million, and we need proposals. We end up not spending, not because of anything, but because we did not get what we wanted, no matter how we would have scaled down the entry requirements to make sure that we prioritize women, we prioritize HDIs and so forth, but you don't just get that because there's a lot of fragmentation. So that's maybe when we get to the close, and then maybe we'll get to how do we take this further.
Mr. Mutau?
Hello.
Oh, sure. Thanks very much. From my observation, I think we also need to look at the issue of making innovation and entrepreneurship demonstrate the value to government. In this way that we always talk of the triple challenges of poverty, unemployment, and inequality. How can entrepreneurship and innovation assist in us realizing or taking those triple challenges? There is a value chain that we can demonstrate. So, in other words, I feel we need to mainstream this issue because it's not dealt as an afterthought. Given the legislative regime, for instance, when we're talking about PFMA or PPP, there need to be a shift in that element to see these two as contributing to the triple challenges. Because if we don't have that synergy between the two, we won't be able to entice government to change or to consider entrepreneurship or to consider innovation one of the pillars that can assist in them attaining the vision. That is my take. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Luthuli and Mr. Mdwaba, let me start with yourselves. Here's the question, because again, I want us to make sure that we are solution-focused and solution-orientated rather than a talk shop. So, in your mind, I mean, this is a loose question, which you can interpret however way you want. So, this section is really around the roadmap formulation, this section here. So, in your mind, what is the baseline for a roadmap moving forward towards an aligned ecosystem?
Thank you so much. I think Mark mentioned that for me is to really look on the case studies that are working in the world. That should be the first roadmap, that we don't have to reinvent the wheel. I mean, there's a big case study with China. We just cannot ignore it. It's working, they've been on it, and they've achieved something that is phenomenal in 30 years of China, you know. And I think that's number one, that's the roadmap, is for us to look, benchmark with other countries that are doing things correct, right. I mean, obviously with them as well, they're facing challenges. But just from the policy point of view, I know the systems are kind of different. South Africa is democracy, but still we can find alignment from the policy point of view and also execution. I think for me, if I were to falter Africa and South Africans in particular, is that we're not really good in executing. You know, even from government point of view, it's how do we get things done? You know, I think we tend to think things will be perfect, and they will never be perfect. You know, with all these success stories, even if you hear about your Elon Musk, they always fix the plane whilst it's moving. You know, if we can have the spirit of getting things done, that's another shift of mind, because we can articulate the roadmaps, but if our mindset is not understanding that we need to really get things done, You know, that's so the training aspect of it, shift of the mindset, and also the benchmark on the different case studies that are successful. I think for me that will be a first start for us. We've been doing, by the way, all these trips, overseas trips and benchmarking on all of that. I think from the BRICS perspective, there is now some framework that has been developed, and what I like most is the fact that now the standardization of our trainings, because that's too important. You don't want to train, you find out that the training in South Africa is not on par with the BRICS countries. So the fact that BRICS Education Council is really pushing on standardizing and coming up with a framework, for me that's another roadmap that says this one now is working, how do we adopt it? But the key thing is the centralization, like you're saying that the Department of Science and Technology, from where I'm sitting, I'm driving innovation, but I've got no clue that I can come and pitch my concept to you. I've tried your TIA, I've tried your different institutions, but it's too fragmented and it's time consuming. You know, if you've got little resources, you don't have the luxury of going to 5 to 6 different departments and you're getting no joy. So again, the centralization, that's another thing that we need to look into, that if we talk technology and innovation, where does it sit? Obviously, it will always cut across. I mean, one thing that we can really applaud this government is the Department of Small Businesses. At least we've got now a central point from the SMME point of view, that we say this department is driving that. And again, it's now the department to department to be able to talk, like you mentioned earlier on, the stakeholder engagement, just the roadmap on its own, because we need to map all the stakeholders and be clear and have an understanding and have road shows and communicate and leverage on technology. Because now if we can really leverage on technology in communicating what each department is doing and what do they want to achieve, I think we'll go somewhere.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a very interesting one. I think I'm going to approach from a slightly different view. Market access has been hammered. It's a reality. There's market access, the challenge in South Africa and the rest of Africa. Lesotho is driving, for example, the government of Lesotho is got a program that is supporting Lesotho citizens that are in South Africa to be linked to markets in South Africa and to go back and mentor their own back in Lesotho. I think it's a very interesting approach that they've taken, and we are working in the Lesotho environment, so it's a very interesting when I compare to South Africa. Lesotho government as well, through a program that they have in entrepreneurship development, or what you call, we've created entities, and PACT has one of them, entrepreneurship support organizations, which is one of them. They actually give seed funding. When I proposed this thing to one of their government departments a year to 2 years ago, they looked at me and frowned at me and said, like, are you crazy? And they're giving them money, okay, 7,000 a month, for them to be able to afford the basic necessities that they need as they are getting trained. They must not sit in the office and decide, or sit at home and say, I'm not going to go to the office because my last 100 rand, I need to buy food at night for using it. So market access is a very interesting, and different countries are doing many innovative things to ensuring that they are own. And Nigeria is very aggressive. If you look at Rwanda, you look at Kenya, you look at different countries, and what are we doing? We're doing it, but we're doing it in pockets, depends who you know, where, right? Government policy is a very interesting thing. South Africa is one of the advanced countries in terms of policy writing. And that's where we end up. It sits in the digital library somewhere. We don't implement. Entrepreneurship, innovation, it needs to be started at a very low level, at school level. In South Africa, universities, it depends which university you are part of or you are attending, white versus black. White universities are more advanced in terms of entrepreneurship and innovation and support. Black universities, zero, right? So how do we need to do this thing? Government needs to forklift the education and balance it right across the universities. All of us are South Africans. it needs to be done so that these initiatives, innovation initiatives, and commercialization and assisting in protecting IP, I'm sure Dr. Brandt will say, protecting an innovation is very expensive. Where would, you don't expect a venture capitalist to come and assist you to protect, but there needs to be a government entity that has been created to assist in protecting these IPs. Before these nice demonstration and pitching and all those things, it needs to be protected. There needs to be a policy around hackathons. A lot of hackathons is like fashion these days. Who has done how many hackathons in a year? And where do they end up? They give a poor child 50,000 this year, next day comes back, there's another 50,000, then what? We need to have a predetermined outcome that says, 3 winners or 4 winners that win out of a hackathon, this is the roadmap in terms of MVP, protection, commercialization, and the road goes. Aligning with market access at the same time. The people who must sit in those presentations, in those competitions must be people with deep pockets that are going to say, I like this idea. Then we look at the training and development. Training and development is very important. It depends who you feed, what you feed. Training has become a tick box and it's become a money-making scheme. It needs to be defined. There needs to be a pathway. Different pathways needs to be predetermined. They need to be set and understood. Pockets of support, I've said this, and this becomes a barrier. Some of us come from the Eastern Cape. You never see anything that the civilized world in Gauteng does. I'll end there. I don't think we've got a lot of time.
Yeah, no, we definitely don't have a lot of time. So let me then end off with Mr. Matsiriso and also Mr. Mutau. How do we move forward? In your closing remarks, how do we move forward? How do we pull down the handbrake so that we're able to move at speed and for impact rather than just spinning wheels to no end result?
If I may start, I mean, from a policy perspective, I think we need to, as government, stop working in silos. I mean, this is one thing everyone say, but I don't see anyone doing it. What I said earlier on is that until such time we have a pipeline to innovation support, we will continue to have what we call the grant entrepreneurs. Somebody who gets grant from DSBD, tomorrow is at DSTI, the other day because we don't have a repository where we can trace. You know, like when you go to Home Affairs, when you give them your ID, they can get your whatever number. You'll see your picture. When you go to SARS, you get the same picture when you go any other way. So until we have something like that in government where, for example, if an innovator comes to to us and say, this is what I want to do, we should be able to go to DSBD and say, well, I think this person still needs some business development support. And not that you say go and fund this person, but to say put this person in your program. As much as when they have sort of finished that program, they can come to us, not guaranteed, but we expose them to our opportunities where we'll say, well, we've got intensive R&D funding, which some of them could be local, some could be international. The same will go to Department of Trade and Industry to say, well, since DSTI are done with R&D, DSBD has done business development, this person is ready for the industry. The second point is also that we need to look at how we regulate funding to the innovators specifically. You find a point whereby we don't give people a chance to fail. And that's what I always say, to say, as an innovator, don't be scared to fail. Once you fail, it means you've learned something. Come back. Don't run away because you've been given money and you have failed. Now you go jiggering around, not even coming to conferences. You failed, yes. Come back. Let's see what we can do, because most of the innovations are things that needs to be tested. You test, you get it right. You test, then you need to do some pivoting here and there. The other one is also, we should, and this goes to universities, you should do your research to commercialize. I mean, there are some researches that should go into publications and so forth. That's well and good. But those that come to innovation, we struggle to see them. And as a result, we tend to slow down in providing funding to universities in terms of the research that can be commercialized. And also, this is where we need to draw the SMEs, because that's my personal belief that once you want to commercialize, call the industry, call the SME. You as a university, produce knowledge, produce other things, but leave this to the people who are created to make money. Because we always swap roles. As universities, we've got tech transfers, we want to commercialize and so forth. No. Create knowledge, let the business people go and commercialize. Let us as government provide support to you to commercialize, to universities to create language. I think in South Africa, we try to be more of masters of everything, and it's not working. It's definitely not working. If anyone stay on our lane and we try to support the ecosystem. You mentioned the issue of VCs. I think, and we need to get closer to working more with VCs and not, I mean, obviously we can't compete with them. And I know there's a program within my department where we work closely with VCs. And I think this is how we try to share responsibilities of funding innovations. This is how we share responsibilities of making sure that we provide funding, we provide policy direction. And as a result, the ecosystem will be comfortable that working with this VC as part of government initiative, then they'll be comfortable instead of thinking that these are vultures who will take their innovation and run away. The last point, Chair, IP management. We've got an institution or an office within the DSI, which is the Intellectual Property Office, where they are available to assist our innovators with IP management. One of the crimes that are happening within the sector is that IP gets stolen, IP gets sold. And one of the reasons why people sell IP is because as government, sometimes we are too slow. So once we have something good and we tell you of submissions, we tell you of policies, government officials, we've got language that sometimes I think is delaying. Someone comes from wherever, offer you money, takes your IP, and then you go back to be a grant entrepreneur because you will get a grant from small business department to go and do another innovation. So we should strengthen our IP management, our IP protection mechanisms, so that innovators come free to know that we will be able to get assistance and our IP is protected.
Hotel, the last 2 minutes is yours for closing remarks.
Thank you very much. I think my takeaway in this instance would be the issue of the creation of a pathway. It's something that can be a takeaway from now. We go on to make sure that we create a pathway such that whoever is in the process of developing entrepreneurs or making innovation, they know how to go about the process because it's not documented and it's haphazard. Number two, the issue of advocacy in terms of these two concepts of entrepreneurship and innovation, through linking them to the government programs so that people should understand. Then thirdly, there is this thing called PFMA. I think we need to have a, I'm not sure because I think it won't be changed anytime soon. And somehow it does not allow for failure. And the name of being called that we have caused fruitless and whatever expenditure is a very big sin in government. So I think if we have a special dispensation for entrepreneurship and innovation, so that it can be exempted from those prescripts of PFMA as it comes to procurement. I think those are the little things that we need to start. Or perhaps something that I felt was pointed out by everyone here is the issue of urban bias. In most of what we do, we are very much biased towards urban areas to the extent. I know there are reasons, but what shall we do? We are biased towards the urban areas. Lastly, on the issue of hackathons, there are a lot of institutions that will develop hackathons, and then after those poor kids would have been grilled for some time, and then they come up with a solution, then it ends up there. Hence the need for some form of a pathway that needs to be developed. Thank you.
Warm round of applause. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yeah, you can climb off stage. So ladies and gentlemen, we are now then at the closing of our session. Just one or two things before we close off. So those that did not scan their tags, please do scan your tags so that we're able to share the outcomes of today. There's also a YouTube link that we are going to send to yourself. So please make sure that you don't leave without doing that. The second thing is we must acknowledge, once again, I did acknowledge certain people when I did my introductions. Also, of course, we did see that there was traffic, so perhaps some of you missed the introduction, but let us just acknowledge and thank our hosts for today, which is Orizo Consulting Enterprise in partnership with PICTA, also supported our main sponsor being Google South Africa as the official side event sponsor, partners, the Leadership with the Soul Institute, and also Inopus, which was doing the technical support and the marketing partner. We must also thank and acknowledge our very esteemed speakers for today, Mr. Sipho Mtombeni, the Government Affairs and Public Policy Manager of Google South Africa, Mr. Mark Harris, the CEO of Tsimologong Digital Innovation Precinct, Ms. Alwani Chokwe, the Board Member of National Youth ICT Council, Dr. Stephen Brandt, Advisor, Coach, and Angel Investor, Mr. Toto Matiriso, the Director Global Projects at the Department of Science and Innovation, Ms. Mamela Lutuli, Founder and CEO of Take Note IT, Mr. Sonwabo Mdwaba, who's the founder and the president of PICTA. I won't mention myself. Mr. Walter Mutau, who's an independent IT consultant. But last, but certainly not least, ladies and gentlemen, I would love for you guys to give yourselves a standing ovation and a very warm, rousing round of applause for attending the session. Please give yourselves, please stand up. You deserve, stand up please, you deserve. Thank you very, very much. The session is adjourned.